right, here we are again. It is where are we at? Episode
17.
5,200,000. Episode 17. All right, that's not
Episode
that.
17. We're trolling up onto double digits.
It's your favorite. I might have to upgrade this, but here you go. It's we want everybody singing
Korner.
that. Anytime you come on, you have to sing that. Actually, it's very important.
It's like Jonathan, like eat, sleep, teep. It's
man,
our little thing. It's our catchphrase.
Got it.
We have Jonathan Poo ooh here. How do you say that? It's just poo, or is it poo?
Get for the record.
Yeah, it's poo. There's like a traditionally there's an okina between the two U's, but legally that's my name there.
Dope.
That's how your mama would say it.
I learned something new already. It's just a couple seconds into the show.
Like
welcome to the show.
Thanks.
We wanted to have John at our last podcast, but unfortunately we had some timing issues and we couldn't get him on in time. And the action just started. It started fireworks from the gates. That last episode was fireworks, and it was so much fireworks that we're going to dedicate a show to breaking this shit down because it was good.
That episode may be watched for like years to come. I
mean, it's got quite a bit of views for a Muay Thai, like it, and it's kind of an insider thing, there's not a lot of people that really understand the politics of what is going on behind the scenes with all of this stuff. Like they just show up and they fight. Most of the people, right? They don't really care about any of this. They go up, they fight, they go home. They don't really understand the politics of it, the pain in the ass it is, that is being created with these kind of events.
Well, you said politics, Tiago. Let's touch base on what that actually is. Even that's policy. Politics just means policy, right? So
that is something that Brandon has taught me.
That changes a lot of things, and we shouldn't get real emotional about it, but we should get involved in changing them if we don't think that they're to our benefit. So
I agree. Who else really doesn't realize the power they have in politics is the people.
Yeah, well, they point the finger. Everybody does, right? It's not. I don't know who changes it. It's not me.
No, I mean, by us doing this, right? We're giving people a chance to engage with, some
right. If you inform the people and you teach them how to change the policy and you give them a path, they might actually act probably a lot faster if they don't know. And I think that's a lot of politicians' MO is just
but wait a minute. What about the whistleblower form, Tiago, on the website? Does that
they even
listen? Does something?
Listen, though, but you're right.
The actual person who you're complaining about.
You're right. But let's historically look at people can't even find our rules on our website, let alone the whistleblower. We can put that thing with 25 arrows pointing at it. Here are the rules, and people will still.
No, I was teasing about all the politics and the whistleblower forms everywhere. And actually, people don't even know that most of the time they go directly to the person who you were whistleblowing about. Then they get they're the first one to see. Almost like you know what I always think? It's like the FBI back in the what was it? The Edgar Hoover FBI or whatever. That's what he was doing. He's like, you just send all your complaints directly to me. You send them to me. And then I'll decide, does that folder, does that go in my little private little notebook so I can use it against whoever political opponents we want to, sir? Or, it's really creepy what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it was a great first step. I honestly did not think that he would take me up on the invitation. Just because historically people don't want to, they don't want to defend their position, because it's risky, right? And I commend him for it. I commend him for coming up on, and I mean, he had a gauntlet of people against him. I'll give him credit where it's due. He really did hold his ground against, a wave of attack.
Definitely respect for that man, for sure.
Absolutely. And and towards the end, my favorite part of the whole show was I think he was a little bit educated on what the issues are. And towards the end, I think it was one of the final minutes of the show where he was like, I am willing to bend a little bit to make this work for other people. And to me, that entire 2 hours was worth that statement. It was worth it because it's maybe a baby step, but it is a step towards some kind of unity and rule set. And he admitted it, like you should count. There's a lot of common ground I didn't expect.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things he said that, he was like, look, he's like, I'm not going to count them, but you should definitely count them. And I'm like, okay, well, why aren't you counting them if you're recommending everybody else to count them, right? I also was surprised about.
Well, just to kind of, what he was saying was it should count as experience, and then how somebody else counts that experience would be the decision-making factor. It's just that it's not easy for anybody else to understand how they should count it. How do they, like we heard from Pete, how do you calculate partial bouts?
He has 1,000 bouts to deal with, right? He has 1,000 bouts, 1,000 athletes with 1,000 records, and maybe half of them have PKBs. I don't agree. And that's another thing that I learned. I don't agree with Pete about, I understand why he does it. He needs to find a metric that works, that's consistent throughout. And he said that it counts if there's a winner. Now, those two little girls we watch on the video, I don't care if there was a winner or wasn't a winner. I'm watching two people gain experience, gain knowledge, right? That looked like a fight to me, whether you deem it a winner or not.
This was a quote though, right? What he said, they should count as experience.
That's exactly his quote.
Right. So like for what we do, that was pretty much because we just count the experience toward your record. So it does convey directly over for us. But
he, and I try to say, like, hey, what if it counts as a half experience or a portion of an experience? A lot of people, kind of resonated with that. But talking to my partners and stuff, we were like, well, if for it to count as a partial experience, there are certain things that it needs to be partial to. It can't be almost exactly a full fight in our eyes, right? Like there's got to be certain things that it cannot have for it to be partial experience. And, we got to decide what that is and have a conversation and go, okay, maybe start the process by which we go, okay, this is maybe half a fight, but then we have metric where it's also I have 3.5 fights.
Defined it. We have actually, and with Ryan and all us together at US Open, for instance, we did take the work and define what it means. So if you do look in our, we're probably one of the only people who really has done that. We define exactly what experience is, exactly what about is, exactly what that is. And I think if more people were transparent like that, it would be helpful. However, we also know that people don't read it, so it's very tough,
it's surprising how many people do read it. I mean, I would get into conversations. I mean, it's usually, there's some names, some legacy members who've been coming to our tournament forever, and they read everything. And people would stop me and they'd get into these conversations about, the semantics and they know the rule like as if they're lawyers, and I think that's kind of cool.
Hey, and who do that? The teams that do that are the successful ones. Generally speaking, the teams that we know that read those rules and know them back and forth are the ones that are usually in the top 10. That's something.
Jonathan, how do you play a game without knowing the rules, bud?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. You guys put it on there. I cite that all the time. I think you put it on there. Know the rules, win more fights, right? And those people know the rules now that you're referring to. Those teams know it now. They didn't always know it, right? Believe me, I know firsthand because I've seen them get a lot of those verbal lashings from either you guys, from the promotion or the sanctioning body. I've seen this firsthand when it's going on, and they come back the next year and they have their stuff together, and they know the rules. They have the paperwork ready. Everything's filled out correctly, and when it comes into it too, like you see blood work, all that stuff, like everything that you guys do, it's all clear as day on your guys' website. But for whatever reason or other, when someone's new coming into it, they think it just, I don't know if it doesn't apply to them, or they just glance over it and kind of like, I'm just going to show up and fight. So
yeah,
that's important.
They
Jonathan, just quickly here,
go ahead,
just for the audience.
Sure.
For those who don't know you or have seen you get separated in the ring by you or get
why should your opinion matter?
Just give your audience a little bit of an idea about the kind of experience you have. How many bouts have you, if you can even estimate that, been in the ring?
A couple thousand. Yeah, so a couple to officiating. Fought as an amateur out here in Arizona. Fought as pro, international. Been doing Muay Thai for 17 years. Founded academy and half an academy co-founder in California. We've participated in these PKBs. My mentor was the former executive ring official for the world for WBC Muay Thai, and he worked and trained the California State Athletic Commission, all the officials that they had there. He worked with the Colorado State Athletic Commission. He'd helped legalize Muay Thai in a couple provinces in Canada, trained ring officials all over Mexico, Central America, South America. And I was there for a lot of that stuff. So I did a lot of that training with them. And, I've been working with USMTA with Bob Carmel, Master Bob, since 2017. When I was doing stuff for WBC Muay Thai, I was doing some of their regional stuff at that time. I think Tiago, one of your guys fought for one of the under 18 titles, if I'm not mistaken.
God,
it was that Vince show. Yeah, it was that Vince show.
I know it happened. I'm just trying to remember when that happened, but yes.
Yeah, it was 2017. I remember it very well.
So way back.
Yeah, it was way back. So, and I started officiating more like in 2016, and I've done everything I've worked every job in regards to Muay Thai. I registered with the Arizona Boxing Commission as well as a referee and judge for Muay Thai. So for like pro level, and been in Thailand, done all that stuff for officiating. And so I've been doing this a long time, and it's something I'm really immensely passionate about when it comes into this as well. I understand the business side, the coaching side, the officiating side, the promotion side. I've worked on promotions. I helped with some of the regulation of the first called choke fights in Pan America. That's like the old school fights with a rope. So I got to help out the Pharaohs down in Tulum with that as well. So I've been in the mix for like a lot of different things with kickboxing. I've been around boxing, but Muay Thai is my jam.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you even own a gym out there, right? Do you still?
Yeah, I still have one. Yeah, we still have one in California. I'm pretty hands off with that. I just work with the coaches and the instructors, and do my best to help out with the students and stuff like that when I'm there. But I'm predominantly in Arizona now.
But that gives you like this wide range. I mean, for how that conveys to people is that you just have ticked off so many boxes of the space, whether it was a coach, owning a gym, those struggles, cornering a fighter, you probably know those struggles, officiating about, judging about, all the things, even now tournament, heavy tournament, churn, I would say, through bout over bout, and the fatigue that comes with working through that and still staying on point on decision making. I think you've been one of the tough in the business.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I love working the tournaments because it's like you see all the freak stuff you read about in the rules, they happen at the tournament. So it's like, hey, it's a good pool of knowledge. Like, hey, are you gonna be able to remember what that call is there when that time comes, when you're on day 3 and it's your 50th fight of the weekend that you're working, and you worked a fight night event that sat on top of your guys' tournament too, right? So, which we've done a couple times where they've had a couple of promotions that sat on top of your guys' tournament as well at the same venue. So, for me, I enjoy it, and part of the reason I like doing it is I had bad referees and judges that worked my events that didn't understand Muay Thai. And my goal is to make sure that like the stuff that my mentor is doing continues. So I want to make sure that's not all done for lack of better words, just to go to waste.
One of the things that's cool that you say that, and I'm sorry to kind of butt in here, but you have experience in a lot of the way that Muay Thai is scored. And then on the last podcast, just back to that, we're talking about episode 16, where I think you made a comment in our internal thread about the scoring, and it wasn't really addressed a ton, but you were talking about the sweep being like the highest scoring technique in that style, and
in
how
the PKBs
exactly. And so then if you're now officiating, I guess, could you kind of go into a little bit about what the C class looks like at the tournament, and how different maybe that those athletes and how they're trying to score? Can you tell us about?
Well, you're really unwrapping like a can of worms here. So I'll go into it first. So
that's what we like to do.
Yeah, as being, it's good. For me, seeing people come from California, I always encourage people, you got to go check it out. This is like a great tournament. The team from our academies, they come every year. They enjoy it every single time. They have a great experience. And part of the struggles that I see from people that come from this experience and learning that a sweep score is the highest, right? Whereas that's actually very low on the judging criteria in regards to Muay Thai.
It's almost like an advantage. It doesn't even score. It's like,
well, the thing is, this is something like I think people use the term score, like you score in soccer, but you don't score in Muay Thai.
Right.
You're judged on your performance based upon the criteria in the 10-point must system. So that's something that I think is really important. Master Bob has been really big about like preaching on that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a given, but I realized that it's not a given for everybody. And when you're looking at it, you have to understand the criteria. And I've seen the judging criteria go out. It's like, hey, damage is number one, man. Like damage is number one, not sweeps. Sweeps comes into off balancing, which is very low on the criteria. It is a Muay Thai technique as well, which that's another thing that I dropped in that private thread as well.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Actually, you're talking about damage, and I'm like, well, if you're semi-contact or your scoring can't actually be about damage, then I don't. I'm kind of disconnect. Yeah, it doesn't sound like the core tenets are even.
And that's the thing is, like, I understand what the idea is behind it, right? Do I think that they did that thinking, oh, we're gonna change the sport? No, but what I think happened is they saw an opportunity to do a lot of these events, and it's creating a lot of influence in the way that these new upcoming people. I've had conversations with tons of people who are like, I had somebody who was from Arizona. Is like, I'm moving to California to do I want to do the PKB circuit, and I'm going to get picked up by one championship. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I mean, like, that's cool that you think that, bro. Like, by all means, chase your dreams. But I was like, hey, you got like great activity out here in Arizona. Meanwhile, I'm out here moving to be out here around you guys more. I was talking to you about that, Tiago.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, a different sport, because the judging criteria, you're not being trained to actually perform better in Muay Thai. You're getting really good at doing these semi-contact rules.
Yeah, you'd be really good at transitioning into a kickboxing karate style.
Yes.
Because that's how they score it. I mean, they score it point for point, literally tit for tat.
Hey, you guys there's Waco out here too. They got the little clickers and stuff like that for kickboxing.
That's right. I mean, people don't know this. I mean, I came from heavy Taekwondo background. When he was talking about his karate and Taekwondo, and I was like, bro, that was my life. I was training with the Olympic team, hundreds and hundreds of fights in Taekwondo. I would fight maybe 5 to 10 times a week. So when he's telling me like I don't know, like I probably know a little more, being that I was in an international circuit. One thing I know about point tech karate is that usually the World Championships is in Las Vegas, and it's basically about 3 to 4 countries, maybe Mexico, Canada. But it's not really representative of the entire world, from my understanding, in these tournaments. Now, I don't really fully know what you know, Mr. Davis's experiences, but I've been to some of these world championships and these people that call themselves world champions, and it's a tournament with, you know, maybe, you know, 100 people. And, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. But, you know, they like to use that title because that's the title of the tournament. So, you know, but I come from that background. And again, I do understand very well where all of his train of thought is, but I kind of like to hear it from the horse's mouth. I don't want to explain for him, but I understood, you know, how he thinks a score is. And, you know, I love the way that you put it, Jonathan, is that uh it's like for them, it's like literally points, because you can't, you know, Brandon was talking about damage. There's no possible way to score for damage when it's semi-contact.
No, you can't. That's the opposite. Yeah, it's completely
opposite. You can't.
Well, and if sweep scored more, right, you're turning it into a sweep contest.
Judo competition.
Yeah, that's not even the main. You know, actually, there's more fouls, I think, in sweeps in Muay Thai than probably a lot of other sports that have them. Like they have to be done a certain specific way to even.
Can I touch on that real quick, Brandon?
Yeah.
So most of if you guys see some cool sweep dump, we see that stuff too. It looks cool. You do MMA by all means, but you got to hit illegal. I'm going to say 98%, 99% of it is illegal. Hit with your shin, hit with the top of your foot. Do not hook and pull. All right. Hooking that's a foul in Muay Thai rules. So it's important for people to understand that too. And when it comes into like from a regulation standpoint, right? So you have judges that are being used to train in this semi-contact environment, right? And then they're going into full contact, right? So then what happens? Their judging might be kind of messed up. Not saying it is, but it can be. And
they're looking for the wrong things.
Yeah, because they're used to seeing this, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for an organization that's doing these kinds of events to really be like drilling those like full contact fights like on a weekly basis and making sure that they're watching it. And like the Arizona Boxing Commission, I think on boxing last week, where they're like, hey, judge these fights, right? Because it's one of those things you have to constantly do. So if you're only judging the PKBs or semi-contact events that are similar, you have to really do that extra legwork. And then when it comes time, like really get a lot of extra ring time shadowing somebody in person at events too. And I have a feeling that a lot of that is not happening. And it's based upon the stuff that I'm seeing. And especially like the most active state for IKF is California. That's my home state, right? And when they took over, they made a lot of improvements, I would say, like allowing more the elbow fights for amateurs and stuff like that too. They allowed limit for a little while, and then they got rid of it because some legal thing that happened. This is a mess.
I remember it was so stupid, but yeah,
it was the dumbest thing ever. But for anybody who wants to look it up, you can go look it up. It's in like public record for just look up international kickboxing.
Give them the gist, because there's a gist.
Yeah. And in gist, there was an allegation that there was defamation and slander against another brand, saying that they were unclean and dirty when they had like a freaking chemist from NASA that was making their stuff.
That's essentially it. That you call my stuff bad, and I'm gonna. And then they started this slander thing, and then I was like, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
If I can't play, nobody can play.
Yeah.
They take the ball and leave the park. Yeah.
See what you did. See what you did, kids.
Messed it up.
Slap both of them on the wrist and send them home.
And kind of
bad,
a little
Johnny.
bit
Timmy.
A little bit before that time, man. There's like, going into that is for anybody that's listening out there that, I know you've talked about having a Coach Rudy Ott on here, and the state of California for pro, they don't have the words Muay Thai written in their statutes for CSAC. That is not in there. So that's something that's very important. Even when you register, it says kickboxer. You're registering as a kickboxer. It's full contact martial arts. They allow you to elbow. There's no clear judging criteria I've looked on the IKS website for their full contact Muay Thai. There's
That's
no
wild.
clear judging
So
criteria.
There's no criteria, public record.
That I've been able to find. I could be wrong, but I haven't been able to find it.
There.
Yeah, sure.
Jonathan, about this conversation about scoring. And, I had the terrible task when we first started out of putting into writing. Now, we had a discussion about this, when we first started to do the tournament. And one thing we wanted to do different than some other folks out there was actually put things down to writing, which was going to hold us accountable, you see, which is a rare thing. And so I had the terrible task of having to do this. And I remember when I got down to the paragraph about scoring, and my guys will tell you, I hated the term score. I was trying to figure out another word to use, but because it's just so popular and people just really know what it meant, I stuck with the word with scoring in the actual document of the rules. But I'd like for you, Brandon, if you have that graphic, I'm going to throw up a graphic on the screen. It is our rules as it's written. I just want you to take a peek at it and just give us your thoughts, just based on how we interpreted what scoring should mean. See if you can magnify that just a little bit.
Yeah, if you could.
You just have to make your screen full. It's pretty magnified.
Oh,
if you were on like a big screen.
There we go. There we go. I see it now. Okay, scoring generally, Muay Thai scoring is based on objective and subjective opinions. Although subjectivity will remain an inherent factor of the sport, U.S. Open judges will strive to make decisions based on observable, articulable evidence. Judges have the authority to make decisions based on their discretion, influenced by their knowledge, skills, training, and experience. Sounding score, judges will reward athletes for blows that land on an opponent's body, whether punches, kicks, knees, and elbow strikes. However, athletes will not receive a reward if their opponent blocks or guards against it. Muay Thai skill demonstration. In circumstances where neither athlete is dominant, judge will give preference to the athlete who showed the clearest Muay Thai skill. In deciding the athlete with the clearest Muay Thai skill, judges will consider the quantity and quality of strikes with Muay Thai skill. Other considerations, judges may also consider the following factors: level of energy or exhaustion, level of bruising, level of aggression, number of rule infractions, and showing a strong defense. So the thing is, this is overall, it's covering a lot. But one of the things is, what's the hierarchy of it? Right?
Yeah. So he put it, but he didn't put it in the right order, right?
So wait, are you talking about this 17.3.1?
The 17.31, it's there. The problem is, and this is where I get to defend Ryan. There is, in the state statute, can we find Ryan, we've asked Brandon, we've asked Bob to give us written rules, have we not?
Sure. And we've asked the state to provide us with pretty much the original document when even the USMTA applied to be an official, licensed sanctioning entity within the state. And their official FOIA request reply, was that they didn't have such a document on file. It didn't exist.
Didn't exist. So we had to go by what I personally know is a criteria. We don't have it officially I know what the criteria is, and that's pretty much what it is. And we don't have the exact order of it. I've been told by Bob. I've gone to his things, but I've never gotten an official document with scoring criteria from the state as it stands as statute.
So I actually have it pulled up.
We ask for it. They say it does not exist.
Can you read it off there, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Right?
So I have it right here.
Where did you get it from?
Oh, you can. You want me to put this up?
Yeah, you can if you want. But this is actually
hide all your bad tabs, sir.
There's no bad tabs. I don't know what you're talking about. Strikes are scored as follows. This is in the Arizona statutes. So you can look up a bunch of legal code, legalese. There's a bunch of other websites that will list it. So this is I don't know if this is the most current one.
Is this ABC? Where is this?
No, this is Department of Arizona Gaming, the Boxing Commission's legal code right here.
Oh, you see,
So,
when was that law enacted? That was fairly recent, no?
I will say it was here last year.
Right.
And it might be, but here's the thing: is
We
they
tried
have
to
the
write
word,
this down 6 years ago.
yeah. So it might not have been there. And here's the thing: is the word Muay Thai is written in your guys' laws in the state of Arizona. For a state of California, it is not.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
Um, let's address this one here first on this judging. So strikes are scored as follows: points are awarded for correct Thai boxing style combined with hard and accurate strikes. A. B. Points are awarded for aggressive and dominating Muay Thai skill. C. Points are awarded for a contestant actively dominating an opponent. And D. Opponents points are awarded for the use of traditional Thai style of defense and counterattacks. And it talks about fouls on here, and it has a list of fouls and everything as well. So there's a general outline here. It talks about the weights and everything like that too. What kind of equipment's allowed, the use of liniment and things like that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing on that screen. But if anybody wants to look it up, honestly, you can just type Arizona Department of Gaming Boxing Muay Thai rules, Arizona Boxing Commission, something as simple as that. You will be able to see all this legalese out. Do the same thing for California. Do the same thing for the state you're in and look at it, because some of them list specific rule sets. I was looking at Utah's, for example, where they actually list like USA Muay Thai's rule sets, like IFMA's rule sets, as recognized criteria that you can run events based on, right? I've seen it for other organizations as well. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that in Arizona, they will do similar things dependent on the promoter, because there is a provision in the statutes that you can agree to different rules as long as it's on the contracts for the fighter and the promoter and the coach. So there can be modifications to this stuff too, as long as everybody's aware and all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. So
Bob just got on our thread and sent it to us.
There you go. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
He's
I appreciate that.
So I was gonna say too, I wanted to add that I just did a quick search, and if you just did a search for Muay Thai rules, a lot of them are similar, like across, no matter where you find it, whether it's from associations out of Thailand, whether even on YoCal website I'm looking at right now, it has a pretty decent explanation of how the rules are scored, and definitely got to be careful where you get that information from. But.
Oh yeah, and here's the thing though, is which one's the law of the land? So almost every Muay Thai organization I've ever worked with, and I've worked with almost every Muay Thai organization that is in the US and North America, almost everyone, and all of them say at the bottom, we also, these rules are preceded by the law of the land. So whatever the law of the land is, these rules sit on top of it. If there's conflicting stuff, the law of the land applies, right? So that kind of stuff also comes in. But if the law of the land allows these rules to come in and be used, then they will use those. But this is when it comes into government regulation. It's above my pay grade. But you asked why California doesn't have those rules written in. And I will say this is, there was a lot of work towards that happening, and it looked like it was going to happen. There was, in part of that was some of the stuff that my mentor was doing. I saw him with the athletic commission in his gym multiple times throughout the years, and he was training them on Muay Thai. And the thing is, you guys don't, kids that are fighting nowadays, they don't realize how good they have it with referees, because before the referees would stand way back holding the ropes and shit, like boxing. For boxing, it's normal. For a boxing referee to come close to fighters, it's like weird. Like it doesn't happen. Like if you're doing that, something's wrong.
The referees getting knocked out sometimes.
Yeah. But the thing is,
these guys aren't young guys either. These guys are in their 60s, and 65. They can't afford to take a shot like that.
No. Well, not only that is, like, for boxing, it's obey my command all times. But in Muay Thai, there's more going on with the clinch and dumps and like the off balancing and catching and kicking out the leg. All these different things, you have to be closer to be able to protect the fighter in a different way. So when it comes into this training, I saw a lot of this happening. I saw a lot of influence being made. COVID happened, a lot of that stuff went away, right? Because a lot of people retired during that time, including my mentor. He retired from officiating. He's done. You know, he literally gave me his shoes. So,
Damn.
The big shoes to fill, man. But with that, a lot of the people that are on these athletic commissions are regulators. They're not people like ask any regulator. I challenge anybody to ask any regulator that is making rules and regulations about the sport of Muay Thai. Ask them, like, how many fights have you had? How many fights have you coached somebody that's fighting Muay Thai had? Just those two things. They don't have to necessarily have fought Muay Thai. Don't get me wrong. It helps. But what is their level of understanding of the sport and the art of Muay Thai? So this is something I think, and it comes into being authentic. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. Simple, right? But I think a lot of people who are in that position, who've always been in the know,
they don't want to say, I don't know, because and then they lose their position.
Well, I feel like this might be something across all of bureaucratic situations where these people are in positions of power and don't really understand, you know, what they even have power over.
Yeah. And I can't knock it because these guys have been doing this so long. It's so new, right? It's like, what is this? And they don't make like the states don't make a lot of money from pro Muay Thai, right? They probably like lose money most of the time. So just like the promoters, right?
There was a day when that happened for every sport though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen it happen, and I know that the influence of it, there's a very strong kickboxing influence in California. A lot of the commissioners, like Benny the Jet Urquias, I think it's his sister, is on like the athletic commission board. She's one of the people. Yeah, it's like, hey, you have this like deep influence that's on there. And I know that there is a unified rule set that's being put out by the Association of Boxing Commissions. This is known as the ABC. The unified rules is what they're trying to make like they have the unified rules of MMA. I read through this draft. There's some shit that's wrong with it. So they're trying to, it's kind of a mishmash of like kickboxing, one championship, and like WBC and WMC rules and regulations. So now you're again making new rules for a sport that has established rule set, and you guys are doing it here in Arizona. You're doing it in Hawaii. You're doing it in Texas, like everywhere, Mexico, Canada, like it's being done. Why do we have to change it? And it's because the regulars that come in, they don't know, and they're only listening to certain people that they've met at these things. And I was actually trying to go to the ABC convention about my friend's baby shower to attend, and I could not miss that. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell. I think those kinds of things are going to help influence the sport for better or worse. So as these come up, I have a copy.
I think the US Open needs to attend the next
100% you need to go to one of these ABC trainings. But here's the thing. Here's the catch, Tiago, Brandon, Ryan, is they don't do a Muay Thai training at these convention meetups. They do an MMA and a boxing. So you have to go to one of them, and you have to go talk and bump shoulders with them. And they find out who you are. Dead serious.
I want to nominate Jonathan Pu'u to put on the Muay Thai training at the ABC boxing. How do we get that on the agenda?
Well, here's I'm gonna one up that. We are starting our own training.
Oh,
at the US Open.
Out of the bag.
This is the second time we've done an exclusive with you, Jonathan.
Oh,
we're doing something called the Muay Thai Combine. And what we are doing is we're doing a set of clinics. And the cool thing about this, what makes this different from all the other clinics and workshops and etc., is that this is a knowledge base. It's like you got to think about when you come to the US Open, that room, that building is filled with Muay Thai knowledge. Lots of decades of Muay Thai knowledge. And not one single person is ultimately correct about everything. There's different ways of doing different things. For example, I've seen a million different ways of wrapping hands, right? There's a lot of different ways. None of them wrong, right? A lot of them, oh, I like more padding here, I like more this there, I like more that this. My thumb, not my thumb. I like open palm, closed palm, whatever. Everybody's got their preference. But there's a lot of coaches that have only been taught one way. One way of cutting weight. One way. We all know about those problems. one way of, cornering in the corner. One way of, judge and referee. In California, it's the only way I know about judging, refereeing, coaching. So I want to do, and this was actually Ryan pitched this idea to me, and I kind of ran with it. It's a really great idea. And basically, any athlete, any coach that registers for the US Open gets to participate for free. And what this is going to be is a series of workshops, exercises. I'm not going to go up there and preach my way, because my way might not be right for you, right? My way might not be right for everybody. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty confident my way is not right for everybody, just like everybody's way is not right for everybody. There's one way for one person, another way for another person. That's why there's a million coaches. And when one fits, it's great. And you stick to that coach, right? Mm. But my idea is, let's say we do a sparring, right? I have all the, little, bunch of athletes, they're just going to spar, round robin sparring. And I'm going to coach one athlete. I'm going to coach my athlete. I'm going to corner my athlete, and my partner, my training partner he's going to corner his athlete. And at the end of the round, we're going to switch. I'm going to corner his athlete, and he's going to corner my athlete. And the athletes are going to start learning from other coaches, from other sources. And coaches are going to learn from other coaches. We're going to do the same thing. Like, we're going to do a clinic where it's just hand wrapping clinic. And the cool thing about this is that you don't have to be an athlete and you don't have to be a coach to participate. So if you're not a US Open athlete or coach, you can participate, pay like 20. I don't know what we're going to charge. It's going to be some nominal fee. It's not going to be anything crazy. But you can participate, and we're going to do these exercises where it's going to start with theory. Right? Let's say hand wrapping, I'm going to do anatomy of the hand. And I'm going to bring somebody that's going to really teach you the facts about the hand and how it works, and what the parts are, and what you need to be worried about, and what is going to happen if this gets hit, and how it's going to break, etc. Boxers, fractures, and things like that. And then we're going to go into application. And we're going to have, groups of 3. One person's going to wrap their way, how they know how to wrap hands. One person's going to get wrapped, so they get the feedback, and one person's going to observe. And we're going to wrap everybody's hands. We're going to go round robin and wrapping each other's hands and studying each other and their way of wrapping hands. The idea is to build an actual community where we learn from each other, rather having one guy. I feel like that's more valuable than any seminar you can go to.
100%.
Because people have different ways of doing it. Eventually, you find different, like, you know what? I like the way he wrapped that guy's thumb. I really like the way he did that. I'm going to try that next time I wrap hands, but I didn't like the way he patted the knuckles. I'm going to do my own way of patting the knuckles. And what happens is you start learning from each other. And I've talked to a bunch of coaches last tournament, and they seem pretty excited. As a matter of fact, they were like making sure, they were like insistent in me telling them, like, hey, please make sure you include me in this. I want to be a part of it because I'm curious. I want to actually go to learn for myself. I actually don't, these are top level coaches. These are legit coaches talking about they want to participate because they want to learn from other coaches and see how everybody else is doing it. And so we're going to start doing that. And we're going to call it the Muay Thai Combine. It's going to be a product of the US Open. And it's going to be an additional value to competing at the US Open, to being a coach at the US Open, is now we get to build a community where we learn from each other. What are your thoughts? What do you think about that?
I was just talking with Bob today about this, because he told me, like, the way the culture is out here in Arizona and why things are popping so much is all of you guys talk to each other. All the gyms talk to each other. and you guys all support each other. The promoters talk to each
And it's
other.
funny
So
because Bob started that. Bob started that.
He did.
He was-
Okay. He said, he's like, I don't want to say that I was the one that started it. And so
He
I was
did
like,
start
okay.
that, and I'll give him the credit where it's due. He started that shit.
Not only
He
that,
would
I think Muay Thai is also in our laws because of Bob. Like,
that's true.
I think literally he ingrained it in our statute. Bob is like the godfather of Muay Thai in Arizona, as far as
That's
I'm
right.
concerned.
I mean, he created the environment in which it can grow here. And I say that, preach that outrightly. And he started that. He would talk to other, hey, the U.S. Open's on that month. I don't recommend you. Maybe try it another week after, or talk to, or he would come to me like, hey, there's a show happening at da-da-da. Or he would be communicative to everybody. He would send out, if there's a show close to our show, he would actually send, something, be like, hey, just letting you know there's a show happening. Maybe you might want to talk to him. And and it encouraged conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason the reason we talk to each other is because the leadership encouraged it. If the leadership doesn't encourage it, then, you start creating these, animosities towards your competition. But reality is, we all know the saying, whereas, rising tide raises all ships, is that everybody's going to grow. If the gyms grow, if all the shows grow, we're competing persistently or consistently, it's all good at the end of the day,
Also
right?
accountability. So like we were kind of brushing over this a little bit, but we're separate. We're not a sanctioning body. The US Open, we're independent promotion.
Correct.
And so one cool thing about how we've worked with Bob over time is when we noticed something that became like a regular issue, or we heard a complaint from a certain group of athletes and it kept recurring, we would actually be able to go to Bob and say, hey, here's what we think might solve that problem. What are your thoughts on it? And collaborate on solutions that have really moved it, in the last 10 years that we've been doing this or so. And I would say that collaboration isn't possible when people are all competing. So if you're, a different promotion, out of state or something, you're kind of on a competitive level as a sanctioning authority, because I think we talked about today earlier that every other tournament that there is by the sanctioning authority. So we're the only one that is not that way from our understanding. So that keeps that level playing field of accountability. So that's why we keep elevating, is because they hold us to account, we hold them to account, and we all together.
Right. There's a balance of powers, but I think that's going to be our next topic. Because I do want to hear how TBA defends that position. Is how do you account for, bias? How do you account for,
it's the little things, Tiago, and I'm sorry, but the main one that always stands out to me, because it's a problem almost every event, is sourcing doctors, sourcing medical officials. And you know what? If I was a sanctioning body and I was able to make the call and say, you know what, Dr. B didn't show up this time, let's go ahead and go, and not saying that doesn't happen, or there might be situations where that's appropriate, but just the fact that there's a conflict, so if, and actually, there's conflict all around, and that who's supposed to make sure the doctors show up. Is that a sanctioning thing? Is that the promoter's job? There you can go a lot of layers in that, but at the end of the day, conflict of interest arises when, if there's profit involved and there's not enough money, and maybe they say, oh, we're going to cut a doctor,
they're going to cut corners to make it work.
And you know what, we don't really need the standby ambulance, and we can go ahead and write that we don't need that, because now we'll put another couple grand back in the big bank.
And that's kind of what I want to hear.
Not saying they're doing that, and sorry, I don't want to
that's right. Not all sanctioning bodies are created equal, but there is the opportunity. There is an opportunity to, hey, you know what? you don't really need the standby ambulance, and that because XYZ, and also doesn't hurt because it helps our pocket. And let's be real, that's a fact that whether you want to admit it or not, okay, you don't have the expense of a ambulance, right? That's a lot of money. That's thousands of dollars over a weekend.
Here's the thing, though, is a sanctioning body's sole purpose is for safety of the fighters, right? They're there to regulate and ensure the rules and regulations are enforced, and that you promoters aren't taking advantage of them, right? I'm joking.
Absolutely right.
But it's true.
Absolutely right.
True. This
Absolutely
is
right.
For people that might not understand. A sanctioning body will be the one that, like, you're saying USMTA sanctions your event. They're not the same. They're two separate entities for that reason. For me, I'm a contractor. I'm an independent contractor that gets hired to work for these different organizations and understanding their rules and regulations of where I'm working at, right? So that's why I know all this stuff up in my head about all these like different laws, because I work everywhere. And it's, like you're saying, it's not throwing shade at anybody or anything like that.
I don't want to throw shade. I actually want them to defend their position. How do they account for, conflict of interest? Do they have a board? And maybe I'm wrong. And I'm okay with being wrong. Defend your position.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that, TBA does have something in place for it, right? I'm pretty sure. I hope. I would sure as fuck hope. I would say that's, I think, the next topic.
Yeah.
I would invite. I'm going to put this out there. I'm going
That's not to mention administrative too. We know that we don't get to double dip and have, the local sanctioning work our front door. We can't have a sanctioning official go and work a booth. That's just not.
I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to invite any sanctioning body, IKF, any sanctioning body head, TBA, IKF. I don't care who it is. WKA, anybody that wants to come on the show and explain to me what systems you have in place to keep yourselves in check while promoting an event. And why should I participate in this event that you promote, you sanction, you get money for, you have a benefit financially? Please, this is a little soundbite that I'm creating right now. I'm definitely posting this. Please defend your position. How do you guys account for it? How do you guys keep yourselves in check? And maybe there's something that a lot of people need to understand. Maybe you do keep yourselves in check, and we don't know about it. How do you do so? You guys are supposed to be a nonprofit if you're a sanctioning body. How is IKF putting on events like PKBs and being a sanctioning body? How do you sanction and make money from it? I would like to know what the system is you have in place, the checks and balances that you have in place internally to keep yourselves from being crooks, because you're supposed to be the ones protecting the athlete from the crooks. What if you guys are the crooks? You know what I mean? Hey, it's just keeping it real. This is a conversation I love. We brought this up years and years ago, and then we're very brutally silenced, and I don't really like that. I think it's good to kind of reopen that conversation and maybe put it to rest once and for all.
Well, the smaller a community is, the harder that becomes, because that's happening somewhere at some point. If people knew the staffing requirements, just logistically, how many times have you been to an urgent care and there's actually no MD, there's no DO that's actually there? It's only an NP. It's only a nurse practitioner, and because
hospitals don't have MDs all day long.
No, and there's a shortage, right? But we're required to have one per ring per day. And then not only that, for weigh-ins, weight check, for physicals during weight control. And so imagine staffing physicians, EMTs every day of the event, multiple for, and in different markets where, maybe there's just not enough of those people. So
And
it's a
there's
challenge.
states where you don't even have sanctioning, like Indiana, right?
Delaware,
There doesn't even Delaware. Excuse me. It's in Indiana too. I thought Indiana too. They don't have
as well. Correct.
Indiana and Delaware don't have any regulatory body for Muay Thai. None.
We need to go put a backyard boogie on there.
Backyard boogie in Indiana, and can nobody say jack shit? And that's an interesting conversation I would like to have with pretty much WBC, any sanctioning body that puts on a tournament. I would like to know, how do you sleep at night?
So I want to touch on one of those, because I do work with them and I know they're working on it. I do know that WBC Muay Thai USA is working on an ethics committee and having a check and balance in place for those kinds of things as well. I brought this up. I had a similar concern, right? Because of like the way I was brought up. That's part of working in the sport and the passion and knowing how things operate. So it's important, right? And I know that I would be surprised if the other ones aren't trying to do the same. And if you're listening or you're watching this, I highly encourage you, if you're a regulator, I encourage you to have one of those. If you're one of those, the ABCs of Muay Thai organizations that sanction Muay Thai tournaments, like look at having one, or if you don't have one in place already. But yeah, that's
my input on that, Jonathan, is in seeing, I don't blab a lot about what I've seen and where I've been in this sport and who's shared my French fries and things like that. But, it goes pretty deep. And the ethics committee, if you see how these small groups are run, it's the same people that are all their other committee. And the problem with that is, if the athletes aren't involved and the athletes aren't on the boards and they're represented, then it doesn't really work in any way, shape, or form. And then not only that, if it's the athletes of the major groups, the stakeholders that have representation, they're all aligned. So you're going to have people that are, the ethics don't apply because they're part of the in-group, and we've seen that happen in the politics of this sport, so I believe it. I still have a hard time, even with ethics committees. I think that's just a, kind of this, put it off to another committee. It sounds nice to everybody, like something's getting done, kind of like the whistleblower form, the whistleblower form. And I've seen it go to people who are explicitly restricted from having that information due to, retaliatory activities that we've also seen happen because of that. And, it's really sad, really frustrating, especially for a growing, budding sport like ours is, to have that. So keeping that independent and at least transparency, that's a whole nother thing, is the matchmaking and what we call match fixing. Why we're able to pull a random draw on a thread and other people go in a little room and, move matches around. And, we know one thing for sure is that if a fighter that's in a deep bracket has a lot more time to rest than an opponent from another camp or another not in the in group, they're going to get a huge advantage. And we know some of that stuff goes on. That's why we don't do that. We leave it to the computer system, fully randomized. And, maybe that puts fighters that are not, or athletes, that are not super, aligned at the part of a bracket they might not should be to another promoter. But anyway, there's a lot to this discussion on, 100%. Why it should probably be separate and not just in the hands.
Yeah. I would invite again to anybody that wants to have that discussion. We can have it at any point on the show. I will give you, just like I gave Johnny, gave him his fair shake, defended his point. We listened. We all learned something. So that I'm going to end the show on that. Jonathan Poo, thank you.
Hey.
I got it right.
Hey,
please, thank you for coming on. I actually look forward to being on your show next week.
You're coming in. You're coming here to the studio.
I'm coming in.
There we go.
Bells and whistles, and we're gonna chat up whatever Jonathan Poo wants to chat about. And we're gonna have a good time. But thank you guys. Thank you. We're going to conclude the show. Join us next week. As a matter of fact, stand by. We are opening registration. I would like to say this week. Can I say this week?
Yes,
Ryan,
definitely.
Brandon?
Yep. We could say
Pretty
definitely this
confident.
week.
We're going to open registration for the U.S. Open this week. Dates will be
Fall
announced.
2024. Fall
Fall
championship.
2024. Stay tuned and join us next week on Cruise Corner at the same time every week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. MST time.
Troki, Cobb.
Peace.
Later.